According to Amanda Marcotte of Salon, for decades the anti abortion movement has aggressively promoted women into visible leadership roles. For cynical reasons, namely to bat off entirely accurate accusations that the movement is misogynist. Never mind that there have always been women who are eager to police the bodies and behavior of other women. Enough people are credulous or at least disingenuous enough to think that I'm a woman, which means I can't hate other women, is an actual argument. For ambitious women who wanted to climb the ranks of Republican politics, anti feminism has long been the steadiest of ladders. The propaganda value of their gender outweighed their party's larger hostility toward women in leadership. But now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned and Donald Trump is back in the White House, many on the right feel they no longer need to hide the naked sexism fueling their movement or put up with the annoyance of women even in token leadership positions. As Kira Butler at Mother Jones reports, the anti abortion movement is embroiled in an escalating civil war right now over these issues. Male leaders of the Christian right have been swarming Kristen Hawkins, the 39-year-old head of a student anti abortion group, demanding her ejection from the movement. It started after she objected to Republican legislators introducing bills to charge women who get abortions with murder, an extreme move she fears will backfire on the movement. But mostly it was about growing male anger on the Christian right that women are allowed leadership positions at all. Remove this woman from public service, declared influential Christian nationalist pastor Joel Webbin, part of the Theobros movement that includes the leadership of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's church. Soon after Theobros jumped in, declaring, quote, "We need Christian men leading the fight against abortion," arguing that women's suffrage was a mistake and accusing Hawkins of emasculating her husband by being a busy jet setting. Excuse me. Webbin and Theobros have been clamoring more loudly in recent months about their wish to strip women, especially their own wives, of the right to vote. You won't let women vote? Well, our society doesn't let 5-year-olds vote, Webbin explained in a May podcast. He added that, quote, "A woman is like a child," and that, quote, "God has appointed men to protect them." As Shara Stankorb at the New Republic documented, there has been growing support in Christian nationalist circles for the repeal of the 19th Amendment and support a household vote system which men vote on behalf of their families. Hegseth's former sister-in-law reports she heard him echo similar sentiments. 45% of female voters backed Trump in 2024, despite his overt misogyny. Most, no doubt, believed that complicity would protect them and that the attacks would be centered on other women. But while the GOP certainly wants to strip liberal and feminist women of their rights, MAGA male leaders are showing increasing interest in bringing Republican women to heel, both culturally and through the force of law. After all, they are more likely to live and work with Republican women. If they want to feel the full flowering of male domination, it's Republican women they need to see submitting. This isn't mere idle chatter. House Republicans passed a bill which stalled in the Senate this session to require citizens to have passport or birth certificate matching their name to vote. This would be a backdoor ban on voting for any woman who took her husband's last name and doesn't have a passport, an estimated 69 million women. It would also disproportionately affect Republican women who are more likely to be married, more likely to have changed their name, and less likely to have a passport. Similarly, there's been a slowly rising volume on the right of talk about banning no-fault divorce, fueled by Republicans like Vice President J.D. Vance, saying it's too easy for women, even those in abusive marriages, to leave their marriages. Legislators in red states are filing more bills to do so, and while unlikely any will pass soon, the goal is to create more momentum for an eventual ban. This would affect Republican women more because, as with abortion bans, only red states would even consider such laws. It's also true that red states have higher divorce rates than blue states because sexist cultural morals lead to more unhappy marriages. But rather than treating their wives better, MAGA men are looking at making it illegal for their wives to leave them. Now, excuse me while I beat the shit out of this dead fucking horse. This is what you voted for. I guess if I'm going to shout catchphrases, they should be in proper English. After all, we're trying to get smarter here. This is the Nazi fascist bullshit for which you voted. You voted for chaos. You voted for cruelty. You voted to give all your power to the richest man in the world by proxy. It's stupid, sad, and ridiculous, just like the entire MAGA bowel movement. I think we can all agree it's common fucking knowledge that all this submission misogyny comes straight out of the Bible. And the entire reason our founding fathers wrote and ratified our Constitution on March 3rd, 1789, was because the book we were living by for the previous millennium and a half wasn't fucking getting it. Ever since, there have been a contingent of Americans trying to conflate and combine the two, falsely implying that all the founding fathers were good Christians who merely forgot to praise Jesus in the document. And then that's why the very First Amendment is a reminder to keep your God the fuck out of my government. I got some truth to tell. Let's do this.
The following moments may contain explicit language. Your discretion is advised.
According to Marlene Lenthang with NBC News, Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos said Wednesday that the paper's opinion editor has decided to step away as the section takes a new direction focusing on personal liberties and free markets. Bezos, the founder of Amazon, announced the changes on X. Quote, "We are going to be writing every day in support and defense of two pillars, personal liberties and free markets," he wrote. We'll cover other topics too, of course, but viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. Bezos said he offered David Shipley, the paper's opinion editor, the opportunity to stay at the helm under his new editorial direction, but he declined. Shipley had helmed the section since 2022. According to former Washington Post reporter Margaret Sullivan, now with The Guardian, the paper's top opinion editor David Shipley couldn't get on board with those restrictions. He immediately and appropriately resigned, especially in the light of the billionaire's other blatant efforts to cozy up to Donald Trump. Bezos' move is more than a gut punch. It's more like a death knell for the once great news organization he bought in 2013. It's unclear what will happen to such excellent left-of-center columnists as Catherine Rampell, Eugene Robinson, and E.J. Dionne. It's unclear to what extent this ruling eventually will affect the paper's hard news coverage, which so far has been unbowed in covering the chaotic rollout of the new Trump cabal. What is clear is that Bezos no longer wants to own an independent news organization. He wants a megaphone and a political tool that will benefit his own commercial interests. It's appalling. And if you care about the role of press in America's democracy, it's tragic. Bezos is sacrificing the Post's reputation and any hope for his financial stability on the altar of personal gain. Recall that the company lost some 300,000 subscribers a couple of months ago after Bezos forbid the publication just before the presidential election from publishing a planned editorial endorsing Trump's Democratic rival Kamala Harris. More recently, the Post refused to publish an Tilney's cartoon that showed American oligarchs, including Bezos, bowing to Trump in protest. She resigned from the Post, where she had worked since 2008. It's all about getting on board with Trump, to whose inauguration Bezos, through Amazon, the company he co-founded, contributed $1 million. That allowed him a prime seat along with others of his oligarch ilk. The latest move certainly will mean more Post subscribers will flee, partly in protest and partly because the paper, at least on its opinion side, no longer does the job. When the billionaire owner of a news media outlet says you can't print any opinions except mine, that's fascism. Jeff Bezos' success is not America's success. Elon Musk's success is not America's success. Rupert Murdoch's success is not America's success. These people are robber barons, stealing from your unborn great-grandchildren using 14-digit numbers. Now the newspaper that proudly boasted its tagline, "Democracy dies in darkness," for years, is now murdering it in broad daylight. And this is the Nazi fascist bullshit for which you voted. According to Bradford Betts of Fox News, U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts on Wednesday paused a federal judge's order that required the Trump cabal to pay around $2 billion in foreign aid funds to contractors by midnight. The ruling comes after the Trump cabal asked the Supreme Court for an emergency order to block the release of U.S. Agency for International Development funding. Officials had said they would not be able to comply with the judge's order. The Trump cabal said U.S. District Judge Amir H. Ali's order had created, quote, an untenable payment plan at odds with the president's obligations under Article 2 to protect the integrity of the federal fisc and make appropriate judgments about foreign aid. The Trump cabal said it was eliminating more than 90% of USAID's foreign aid contracts and $60 billion in overall U.S. assistance around the world, putting numbers on its plans to eliminate the majority of U.S. development and humanitarian help abroad. The cuts detailed by the cabal would leave few surviving USAID projects for advocates to try to save in what are ongoing court battles with the cabal. President Donald Trump and ally Elon Musk have hit foreign aid harder and faster than almost any other target in their push to cut the size of the federal government. Both men say USAID projects advance a liberal agenda and are a waste of money. According to John Freitz and Devin Cole of CNN, the emergency appeal marks the first time the president's efforts to drastically remake the federal government have reached the nation's highest court. The case appears likely to put the justices on a collision course with Trump's sweeping efforts to consolidate power within the executive branch. Roberts' order does not resolve the underlying questions raised by the case. Rather, it imposed what's known as an administrative stay to give the court a few days to review written arguments in the case. Roberts is the justice designated to handle emergency cases from the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, D.C. The Chief Justice called for the groups that sued the cabal to respond by Friday. The Trump cabal raced to the Supreme Court late Wednesday, just hours before the midnight deadline, and urged the justices to step in immediately. That's the second time Trump has rushed to the high court since taking office last month. Another pending Trump-related case deals with the president's firing of leadership at the Office of Special Counsel. According to The Guardian, workers at USAID have described Trump's proposed cuts as a, quote, catastrophic blow, which will lead to, quote, shuttering life-saving and important programs forever. Associated Press reports after USAID placed 4,080 staffers who work across the globe on leave Monday, some have been told they are being given a brief window Thursday and Friday to clear out their workspaces. Each worker will be given just 15 minutes at their former workstation. Virginia Democratic Rep. Gerald Connolly said in a statement that the attack on USAID employees was unwarranted and unprecedented. It's an unwarranted and unprecedented attack on all of the less fortunate people throughout the entire world. There are AIDS patients going without medicine and starving children going without food, while the supplies they desperately need waste away on shipping docks with no workers left to finish the job. The cruelty is the point. The richest man in the world, who takes $8 million of government subsidies every single day, has labeled anyone in the world that ever needed any financial assistance or worked a non-military government job as the parasite class. After all, he's earned every single penny he's ever made with sweat and hard work, while the rest of us living paycheck to paycheck are a detriment to society, undeserving of any governmental protections or assistance because our needs are bankrupting the country. Even law enforcement has become a libtard communist waste of money and effort. The truth is obvious. If you can't see it by now, it's because you refuse to. This is the Nazi fascist bullshit for which you voted. According to Frank Andrews of CBS News, self-proclaimed misogynist social media influencer Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan have been allowed to leave Romania on a private jet bound for the U.S., despite facing rape and human trafficking charges that are still pending, CBS News' partner network BBC News and French news agency AFP reported Thursday. Citing sources in Romania, the outlet said the Tates, who are dual U.S.-British nationals, were flying to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Prosecutors in Romania have alleged for years that Andrew, 38, and his brother Tristan, 36, set up a criminal enterprise in the country and in Britain in 2021, along with two women, and used it to sexually exploit multiple people. The brothers have always maintained their innocence, as rapists do, denying all charges against them in Romania, as well as separate allegations made by women in Britain, which are still being investigated by police in England. Romania's organized crime prosecution unit, DICOT, said the pair remained, quote, under judicial supervision and would have to, quote, appear before judicial authorities at every summons, according to the AFP. DICOT said in its statement that prosecutors had approved a, quote, request to modify the obligation preventing the defendants from leaving Romania, according to the Associated Press, but it made no mention of who had made the request. I wonder, who could possibly have the power to call up a law enforcement agency in Romania and get a court order modified to release a pair of semi-famous right-wing rapists and put them on a private plane to Florida? It's baffling. Thanks for watching. If you speak the truth, you're always right. Do svidaniya.